Welcome to Xplane, and at time of recording we're in the latest beta release, which is 11.50 beta 9. And something a little bit different for this channel, we're in a helicopter and it's a new release from VSKYLABS. It's a Belgian-made ultralight two-seater and it's available from the Xplane.org store at a very reasonable price. It's the Dynali H3 EasyFlyer. In the real world, the Dynali can be bought in kit form or ready to go straight out the box. We're in the States today, just north of Seattle at Skagit Regional Airport, and our destination is Orcas Island Airport, a distance of about 45 kilometers. Our flight today is going to be in VR. We're using the Hewlett-Packard Reverb Pro headset because of its amazing resolution, allowing me to get maximum benefit from the scenery. Both our departure and arrival airports are from Orbix. True Earth Washington is not installed, so the scenery between the airports is default Xplane. Our departure point, Skagit Regional Kilo Bravo Victor Sierra, is a popular GA facility, but has aircraft uses covering business, commercial and recreational aviation. The airport is nestled in the middle of the Skagit Valley with the Cascade Mountains to the east and the San Juan Islands to the west. The Dynali comes with a stainless steel chassis, aluminium boom, and both the rotor blades and cabin are coated in carbon fiber. Service ceiling is 10,000 feet and maximum weight 500 kg. Hello and a warm welcome to the SimHanger. My name's Mark, the SimHanger, all things flight sim related. Now I don't know if you're like me, but very often I'll buy an airport scenery package simply because it's in my favorite region that I'm flying in at the time, or it's an arrival or destination point for a planned flight. And I'll arrive at the airport, along the runways, and have a look around the terminal, but not a lot else. Many airport designers, such as Orbix for example, include details not just at the airport but in the surrounding scenery area as well. And in Prepared, for example, I've been using A2A's Piper Cub to explore previously unseen scenery. I decided to do the same in Xplane. This was a recent release. I've never really flown helicopters before. Well, its name after all is EasyFlyer. Well, I found that I had to invest a considerable amount of time and effort in order just to master some of the basics, and a qualified or good helicopter pilot I'm certainly not. New respect for helicopter pilots. But something else happened, and that was in VR. I experienced the thrill, the sense of height and speed and movement that I haven't really experienced in VR since my very early introduction to VR flying. What a great experience. Anyway, enough from me, let's get started. It's not practical or realistic to fly the helicopter with a yoke or anything like that, so I had to bring out my trusty Speedlink Phantom Hawk flight stick. It's nothing fancy, it's about 23 pounds with just the basics, but it does the job and I normally use it for DCS. The benefit for me, of course, is that the joystick has got a twist facility to control the yaw. For a complete helicopter noob such as myself, it was the easiest way I found of controlling the helicopter. In order to get fine enough controls of the various axes, I found I had to modify the response curves for the joystick, and those modifications are shown at the end of the video. I also applied full stability augmentation within the settings, but the Dynali is designed to use the experimental flight model. So I have this enabled, and here's a quick snapshot of my Xplane settings for VR. This VSKYLABS helicopter allows you to change the configuration in terms of how many passengers are visible. You have a choice of none, just the pilot, or the pilot and the co-pilot, and these are activated by simply clicking on the seats. For this flight we'll dispense with the passenger and just go with the pilot. Well, you'll be glad to hear it's time to get going, so let's just close the canopy and lock that in. Ignition on. Power is now on. We're just checking the circuit breakers. They're all pushed in. We'll just get some lights on. Turn our 2 ignitions on. Check the clutch engagement and now the cyclic controls. Fuel flow is on and checked, and now press the start button. Wait for it to engage. There we go. Please note, I'm not following the full and correct startup procedure. Details come with the helicopter. Time to switch on the auxiliary power to get all our instruments functioning. You'll notice the blue light on the dashboard that shows that the governor's engaged, which links the throttle and the cyclic control. For beginners like me, that's the easiest flying option. Now raise the cyclic and the throttle and a little bit of right yaw. Well, I should have increased my height a little bit there. That's showing my inexperience, but we're on our way. We're going to cross over the runways and have a quick look at Skagit Regional Airport. We can fly low and slow and take time to appreciate the scenery, not only at the airport but in the surrounds as well. You may notice in the cockpit that the shadows are fairly smooth. There's a fix to get rid of the jaggies, and I'll leave a link in the notes below to a video I did on this recently, or click the link above. The ability to hover, of course, in a helicopter gives you a huge advantage to take in the scenery. Anyone spot the 2 John Deere tractors? Well, it's now time to leave Skagit Regional behind. We're just heading along the runway. We're going to slowly gain a little bit of altitude and head towards our destination, Kilo Oscar Romeo Sierra, Orcas Island Airport. Using the Hewlett-Packard Reverb headset lets me enjoy all the little attention to detail that VSKYLABS have included with the helicopter. Great external views and moving motor parts. We're about 44 kilometers away from our destination, that's it indicated there. So heading northwest over Padilla Bay, across a few islands to Orcas Island. We're not going to be flying very high today, we're going to keep it fairly low, maximum altitude about 1500 feet and quite a bit lower at times on the journey. The developers have adopted a fairly interesting approach to the VR cockpit where you can see yourself and your head is positioned where it would normally be, but the rest of your body is visible. Well, we're pretty close to our halfway point. We're just passing to the left of Cypress Island. With the Dynali helicopter being very small and relatively light, it is certainly twitchy at the best of times. I imagine that's the case in real life as well. There's no such thing as hands-off flying while you're flying this helicopter. It's hands-on and concentration all the way. Probably not helped by my fairly basic and rudimentary joystick. Regular helicopter flying would probably involve some bespoke controls, or at very least the investment in something like the Thrustmaster Hotas or the Satex X52 Pro. Being well past the airport now, this is default Xplane 11.50 scenery, of course. For my system in VR, it's very smooth, and I have got the Vulcan enabled. Range on the Dynali is fairly limited. It's only got a 60-litre tank. That's about 16 US gallons. What's interesting is it takes regular unleaded fuel. The motor is a Rotax 4-cylinder 4-stroke with opposing cylinders. Cruising speed is between 120 and 140 kilometers an hour. Being such a small aircraft, of course, it's VFR only and no flying at night. Now coming up on the southern end of Orcas Island. We've dropped down in altitude to just a few hundred feet above the ground. We'll have a low flyby before gaining altitude again over the high ground and then doing a right turn towards Orcas Island Airport. For those of you not familiar with helicopters, you may have been wondering what that green string is stuck on the windscreen. Well, that's the yaw string and indicates whether or not you're flying straight or whether you're yawing to the right or the left. It's particularly noticeable when you slow down and for landings. You'll also note the lights on the panel there, the two green lights. They're the fan lights that have come on. They're automatic and they're designed to cool the engine oil. We're going to gradually now lose a bit of altitude as that's Orcas Island Airport dead ahead. For such a light aircraft, of course, the weather's important. Fortunately, it's very clear and there's only a 2 or 3 knot crosswind for the landing. This aircraft is certified up to 16 knots crosswind. Anything more than that and it gets more than just a little tricky. I'm going to be using a little bit of artistic license. I'm not going to follow the correct approach procedure for Orcas Island. We're just going to fly on down, fly over the airport, loop round and see the scenery before looping round again and doing a final approach to land. I have of course been practicing some landings, most of them ending rather badly, but I haven't landed at this airport, so we're going to have to try and pick out a fairly big space for us to land in. Now just hitting the shoreline and coming over the airport. At this end of the runway to the right there looks like a parking area there. That might be good for a landing. Lots of wide open space, which I suspect is what I'm going to need. Also looks like there's a bit of a clearing at the other end of the runway. And there's something here on the right. Looks like a hospital landing point, EMS, Emergency Medical Services. Well, I'm not a medical emergency, but I think I might give that a try. Apologies in advance if it gets ugly. We're going to fly over this harbour here and then loop round, fly back over the airport and see if there's anything else we can see before looping back again for a touchdown. Okay, here we go. So my altitude seems about right. I need a controlled descent. I'm just adjusting the cyclic control and obviously the throttle at the same time just to slow myself down about 90 kilometers an hour. It's a bit fast. If there's one thing I've learned, it's landing a helicopter is a completely different skill set to flying a normal aircraft. With my limited skills, I think it's best I head directly for the landing point. I've been pulling my nose up to slow myself down, but perhaps I've just got myself a little bit too slow. I'm just a touch under 60 knots. My landing point is now visible. I need to watch the yaw or the sideways movement of the helicopter. You can see on the screen that the green yaw string is now moving quite aggressively to the left, which means I'm not flying exactly straight, which is what I do need for the landing. Speed is 40 knots. That may be a little bit slow. I am starting to lose a little bit too much altitude. I've been here before. It's now adjusting for the yaw, pitch to control the airspeed, and cyclic to make sure that I can get into some form of hover position. I would strongly recommend that you consider tightly fastening your seatbelts at this time. Coming in, I am a little bit low. I'm not going to make it. I'm down. Oh, well, it was more a slide to first base than a proper landing, but I'm going to take it. The man is there and he's been watching. One thing I've discovered is flying a helicopter in VR is an amazing experience, and particularly the Dynali H3. Well, there we are, my first full and complete flight in a helicopter. There were, of course, many other initial attempts, but they all ended fairly badly. It's certainly something you need to invest some time in to get the hang of and get your settings just right. But the rewards, well, they're incredible, highly recommended, and best experience for me, certainly in VR. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell for future notifications. Look after yourselves. Hope to see you again soon, and bye for now.